Excited to have our next guest on here with us, Vincent Kirkwood, joining us now. He's the Senior Director for the Diversity and Inclusion and Consumer Events for MRA Experiential Marketing. You're also on the West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation Department, so great to have you with us, Vincent. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ronnie? Hi, Tyler.
I love, I've been on your website, and you guys are so creative, and some of the mobile units that you have come up with for some of these companies. For those not familiar with your company, give us a background.
Sure. So, again, my name is Vincent Kirkwood, Senior Director of Diversity and Inclusion at MRA Mobile Experiential. And what we do at MRA is we build custom live brand experiences for our clients. And our clients range from Fortune 500 corporations to alcohol brands. We work with business to business. We work with healthcare, culture, and education. So we specialize in experiential marketing, but it's typically done through a custom live vehicle. We've been in business for about I'm 35, so about 35 years. We started in 1986, and just maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we had switched ownership. But since then, we have been really moving forward with and pushing the needle, if you will, in the experiential marketing field.
But looking at some of these trucks, so it's like one of those 18-wheelers. Yeah. We've all seen them at some of these events. These are simply amazing. How do you and your team members come up with some of these designs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. They're pretty massive. And before I got into this business, I was in the field of sports, and I kind of still am. I was working with the Cleveland Cavs and the Washington Wizards and the Mystics. But when I came over to MRA and saw these large vehicles, I couldn't believe it. I thought it would take 2 years to build. But to be honest with you, Ronnie, it only takes us we could get a double expandable build probably in 30 to 60 days. It's unbelievable. So I'll just explain a little bit about our process. So we usually start with the client asking us, hey, we want to do this. We want to reach out to our clients. We want to get that personal brand experience. And what we do is we say, okay, based on what you're telling us, we think this can be done in a smart car, a Mini Cooper, or you probably need to do it, like you mentioned, Ronnie, in a double expandable 18-wheeler. So somewhere in between that, the client finds what it is that they want to put their brand in and tell their story in which type of vehicle. And from there, we go to work with our content development team. We start thinking about ideas. We do a lot of whiteboard narratives. We do white paper. We put out a lot of samples. If you come over to our shop over in Madison Heights, we've got carpet, we've got flooring, we've got paint, we've got monitors, we've got ceilings, we've got lighting. So all of those things come together, just the making of the minds, and it turns into this finished product.
So Vincent, with that, what has business been like right now in the middle of a pandemic, because so many events have been closed down?
Ronnie, when this first started, this pandemic back, I want to say about a year ago today.
Yeah.
I was in North Carolina, and I was trying to get back home because it was just weird. I've got 2 small kids, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I need to get back to West Bloomfield just to feel safe and make sure they're okay. But we were in the middle of a CIAA, which was a conference in the HBCU league, and they were getting ready for their March basketball tournament, and we did a vehicle for them in collaboration with American Legacy. And I flew home, and that was the end of the events. We were working with the NHL. They were in Seattle on their mobile program, and I got a call from the NHL, and they said, we're going to shut it all down until we know a little bit more. So, and we've been shut down ever since. However, we've always been busy still with taking calls. I guess that gives an opportunity for people to call us and see, for the future, what the future of experiential marketing looks like. And we've been busy on the production side, but we just haven't been able to operate our vehicles out on the road. And it's just starting to come back alive. I've got 2 programs on the road right now. One goes to hospitals and provides food and lunches to it's a healthcare insurance provider, and they provide lunches to the frontline workers and things like that. So that's one segment of what we're doing. We've got another program out for a foundation nonprofit that talks about civil rights and anti-Semitism and things like that are in Chicago. So those are the only two I have right now. However, the company, we have probably 36 vehicles that should be on the road right now.
And so, in the middle of a pandemic, when do you expect to get back to where we were before?
I want to say that summer 21, but I think I'm going to take the safer route and say spring summer 22, just because I don't know. It's kind of unknown. The vaccine situation is looking very promising. We're getting a lot of phone calls. I was on a call with 2 potential clients just yesterday, one this morning, and they're ready. People are ready to go out, and in our industry, we focus on brand experience, the touch, the feel, the see, the hear, the memorable pieces that you can take back from a brand and share that either online or in person to other people. So that, being around people in events is our lifeblood of what we do here in experiential marketing. So 2022, fingers crossed, but we think that we'll have some operations going on this upcoming summer 21.
And are you having any of your clients utilizing other vehicles that they already have, because they are kind of these freestanding, display, for a lack of a better word, that they can take on the road, and maybe it can be out in the open than for people to come through one at a time?
Exactly. You're 100% correct. We can do that. We haven't had a lot of that just because, people have been indoors. So even if we've been doing we came up with something really cool with one of our clients. We did a virtual tour of a vehicle. So the vehicle was parked in our facility, and we had a camera, and we did a virtual tour. So now you can go onto that client's website, click a button, and take a virtual tour, but you're actually in the actual vehicle. So some of that we looked into early during the pandemic, and now we're a big billboard display. So if we did put a wrap it in a vinyl wrap and just placed it somewhere, people will see it. So it's definitely something that we've thought of, and that clients are looking to do here in the future.
Vincent Kirkwood with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the Senior Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Consumer Events at MRA Marketing, and also a West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation Commissioner as well. So you're talking about how these experiences can provide something different and unique and shareable to people within your clientele. And during the pandemic, as you have had clients more sparingly than you would have in normal times, how has that changed the vision of your operations and how you plan these different experiences? Because people are not going to be doing these necessarily together. They're going to be taking in these experiences and then going home because of the pandemic. Does that change the perspective in the planning to make those experiences that much more engaging and special?
Thanks, Tyler. That's a great question. So, like most organizations and corporations during the pandemic, we've had to shift. We've had to innovatively think about different opportunities and how we can still engage with our clients. So, as I mentioned not too long ago, the virtual tour we did, that was the start of it. However, when we go back into real life experience and actually at events, we used to have 40 to 50 people in our vehicles at one time. That probably will no longer happen, but now we'll just have to limit the amount of people that walk through. We have, when the pandemic first started, we immediately added sanitation stations where we have, sanitizer and wipe down, and maybe we let 2 people go through the experience at a time. And we see that continuing through the future. However, I think the best thing to do is continue to do that, but still engage online. Like, what are you going to get after the experience that you go through the vehicle? What are some, I want to say leave behinds, but not necessarily things that you touch, maybe some QR codes. I don't know if you guys have been to restaurants, but now you have to do the QR code for the menu. Some innovative things like that, maybe add more technology. Maybe we do more where we don't necessarily have to go inside the vehicle and touch things, but we're visually seeing things through screens. One of the programs we just put together, there's 12 LED screens inside. So, you go in, you really don't have to touch anything. You kind of walk through, you listen, you look, and then you keep it going. and then we try to figure out ways to engage with you and to continue the conversation of the brand once you've left the particular vehicle. And to your question, Tyler, again, how have we changed? We've had to limit the number of people that work for us. Of course, we've had to do that, and we're hoping to get everybody back into the swing of things when we get moving. But as a senior director of diversity and inclusion and consumer events, I've had to think of ideas. I've had to work with content. I've had to do logistics. I've had to do spreadsheets. So we kind of share our role of things. And our president, Tony Amato, is fantastic with that. He'll jump right in as well and get his hands dirty. So that's the culture that we have here at this organization.
So Vincent, with that, what's been a positive, do you think, that's come out of this for your company?
I don't know if this is a positive, but now, management can see that everybody has more talents than they did originally. So that's kind of interesting. Like, I may get asked to do something, I'm like, oh, well, I don't really do this, but I guess I can. So knowing
I'll figure it out today.
Yeah, exactly. We're pushing the limits to people and kind of stretching them out. So that's a positive. But the other thing is, and more importantly, is just being innovative, always being able to stay on our feet in this industry as individuals, as industry leaders, as a corporation, as an organization, just being able to shift and think. We're in marketing, so it is creative, and to be able to think of creative things to do, creative ways to engage our clients, and for creative ways so that we can share with our clients how to engage with their customers. So I think the innovation that has come out of this pandemic in this industry has been really neat and really happy to see it. And hopefully we'll continue that innovation when this pandemic is over.
But I know that you deal with companies not just all across the United States, but globally as well. What's it been like to have to try to shift what you're doing for various companies and various clients in different parts of the world?
Absolutely. So, everyone in the world has experienced this pandemic, some on greater levels than others. And our company, fortunately, we have clients that we deal with in Liverpool. We have an office in Liverpool with some partners that we work with there. We're really close with our partners in Toronto. We have an office in Windsor. We have an office here in the United States, in Madison Heights. The toughest part is being able to, prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of project managers and people that will bounce back and forth from here to Canada, to Liverpool. We go to the UK often. That's all changed. There's no going over to Canada's office and coming back here. That's all gone. So what we try to do is those folks who live in Canada, those folks who live in Liverpool, a lot of Zooms, a lot of creative conversations. We're starting a podcast and things like that. And with the fact that there's not a lot of events going on based, in Liverpool or in the UK or in Canada, we haven't had a huge issue with having staff there because there's not much going on, but just being able to connect with those people on the different time zones via Zoom, that's been the most, we've been pleased with that, being able to do that. And we'll be able to continue that Zoom and that digital conversations even once this pandemic is over as well.
So are you still teaching at all? I know that you're a sports professor as well.
Yes, that's correct. So I teach at Clear University and I teach at Wayne State University. My master's is in sports administration and sports promotion, and I'm actually working on my PhD in sport leadership. So aside from all my sports clients with MRA and my diversity clients and things like that, I'm still teaching as well.
So, and Vincent, and you said you're a father as well. I'm sitting here. How many hours in the day do you have? You must have more than we do.
No, I still got the 24, which feels like 10. But, my day starts really early. I'm pretty much up at 5 and my kids and my wife, I love spending time with them. So I try to get home before bed for the most part. Fridays I try to have no meetings and try to get home early. My daughter's Zooming school, doing Zoom. So sometime during the day we'll be able to Zoom each other and FaceTime and things like that. But it's busy. It's busy. I'm much busier now than I was before the pandemic.
Right. What's it been like for you, though, trying to teach right now? Are you guys back in the classroom at all?
So at Cleary, we are back in the classroom. However, what Cleary has done is very innovative as far as having multi-format classes, meaning, you can either come to the classroom and you can have class and sit in front of me and we can, go over the material, or we can do it just like we're doing here on a Zoom. And you have that option to be able to do either one. But it's been a little bit difficult because, when I used to teach prior to the pandemic, I'd have a classroom full of 30 people and we'd be discussing and, this person is saying this and that, on the Zoom, sometimes people don't turn on their cameras, so I don't know if they're in bed or if they're asleep or if they're really there. So it's been a little bit different. And then the ones that come to the classroom, there might be 2 or 3, so we have these small discussions. I think they're still valuable discussions. I think with the information that I'm providing to the students is valuable information. It's just sometimes I feel that there's a little bit of a lack in the interpersonal that I wish we had prior to the pandemic. But again, I've created this thing called a sports conversation series where I bring in industry professionals within the sports industry to talk to the students via Zoom, and they've been really engaged. We had on our last one, we talked to Kwame Mason, who's the director and producer of Soul on Ice, which is a hockey documentary on race and inclusivity. We had almost 50 people join that conversation. And prior to that, we spoke to industry professionals from the Buccaneers who were in the Super Bowl. We spoke to folks from the Lakers, and we've had 30 people, 25 people join. So, that has been a really a plus for me and for the university to be able to still engage and still introduce students to industry professionals, because that's the experience and the connections that they need in order to grow in their careers.
And do you think maybe had it been prior to the pandemic and we were trying to do life the way we used to do it, it'd be harder to get some of these people, because we would, if you were going to say, hey, we're going to have a video conference, people would be like, now we're just all so used to it, but it does make it easier to try to get some of these bigger, high-profile individuals to come on and speak.
Ronnie, you're 100% correct. I mean, I got and granted, some of these folks are friends of mine, but are they friends enough where they'll fly from Tampa Bay the week before the Super Bowl to talk to my students? I don't know. My friends are out in LA. Are they going to fly here to talk about the Lakers after they just won the NBA championship? I'm not sure they're going to do that. But like you said, the fact that it's on Zoom, I've been able to get some really great people who are interested in engaging and pouring into young professionals, young students, in order to get them moving forward in the direction of their career that they like.
Vincent Kirkwood joins us on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the Senior Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Consumer Events at MRA Marketing, and is also a West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation Commissioner, as well as a Sports Marketing and Promotions Associate Professor at Cleary University. And to continue on with that angle, as this pandemic has gone on, we've seen that marketers and promoters like yourself and your colleagues have had to change their strategies, have had to change how they go about the process of providing experiences and marketing for your clients. How has that changed the way that you have been teaching your students about what their industry is going to look like as they enter into promotions and marketing, particularly in sports, and how they're going to have to think differently based on what they've learned we've learned throughout the pandemic, and the basics and the tried and true methods that were already in place pre-COVID?
Yeah, great question. And that's actually one of the questions I asked to the folks that join me, the industry professionals that join me in the sports conversations that we have. And a lot of them say kind of the same thing, just always, not being complacent is the key, because, none of us really knew this pandemic was going to come along. None of us knew that we wouldn't have fans in the seats. And, a lot of my students are, we're sport promotion. So how do you promote a sport in an arena where there's no fans, So again, being innovative and the internet and using, digital resources and things like that in order to continue to grow. So even myself, like prior to the pandemic, I was consciously aware of digital resources that we have, but since then we've really dove into it and dove into sport financials and sport food and beverage and just things like that we understand from a different component. For example, my sport food and beverage class, we talk about we talk about the food and the vendors and the partners that bring food into the arena and things like that. So that's not happening now. So we kind of shift and talk about, how does that work in the big arena? How does that work on a golf course? How does that work in a sports club and things like that? So, looking at angles differently. We used to just say, okay, you bring in the food and then you have Airmark and you have Cisco. But now it's looking at it a little bit deeper. How are you cutting some of the costs? And what are those vendors and those partners doing in the course of a pandemic, now that they don't have fans? And I remember going to the Pistons game early on when they first allowed a couple of fans back in, and I just was casually going, and I think the second quarter I had got thirsty, and I was like, oh, let me go grab a water. I didn't realize that you don't get water, so I'm just sitting here the whole second half, and I'm so thirsty, and it's like, wow, you never really thought about how important it is to be able to get a $6 Aquafina from the concession stand. So it just really makes you think differently, and in the industry, sports, marketing, all of that.
And do you think some students are saying, hey, maybe I need to change my major because I don't know where this industry is going to go or how long it's going to take for it to bounce back?
That's a great question, and the sports professionals that I've been able to introduce my students to have asked that question. Students have asked that question to them, and most of them have stuck with it. They believe, the industry professionals believe, that sports is not going on anywhere. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of who we are as Americans. It's a part of what we do. It's a part of our pastime. So sports is going to be there. It's just, is it going to look a little bit different? Perhaps for a few years it will, but it's not going to go away. So my students, I'm still encouraging them to stick to it. And, sports kind of goes a long way. It's, when you think of sports and industry professionals, you think of, the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, and the MLB. But a lot of times people don't think about, affinity marketing. So like if you're working with a group like Chase, or if you're working with a different organization, there's so much sponsorship involved in that. There's so much other things that are related to sports that are not just working for a professional team. As Tyler mentioned, I'm the commissioner for the Parks and Rec Commission at West Bloomfield Township. And a lot of my students are interested in youth sports and environmental sports and things like that. So I don't want to shun them away from sports just because, you can only have 750 people in a 20,000 seat arena. But young people, like my daughter who's 6 and my son who's 2, my daughter starts field hockey at the end of the month. And there has to be people who are still training her to do field hockey and pushing her to do that, coaches and administrators. So, sports looks a little bit different, but there's still so many things that are youth that we need, even from PE coaches to youth coaches and youth soccer and things like that. So sports is not going anywhere, and people still want to get into it, and they believe in it. And my students, we have passion. If you're in a sports program or a sports administration program at a university, there's a lot of passion behind it. You're not just doing it because you can't think of anything to do. You've got some passion there, so they're going to stick with it, I'm hoping.
And we've seen, especially with the youth, the traveling teams have been very popular this year. Yep. So while Michigan was closed down, Ohio was open. So it's really exploded because parents felt the need to get their kids into some of these organized sports.
100%. And I can't imagine, as a youth, and Ronnie and Tyler, I don't know if you guys play youth sports, but I just couldn't imagine not being involved in youth sports as a kid. Like, I think it has shaped so much of who I am today as a father, as a leader, as a member of a team, of a group. Without that youth sport experience, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And I feel like if that was taken away from students for too long of a time, or it would be detrimental into their development. I'm on a nonprofit called Art Road, and what Art Road does is bring art back into the schools. But if you look at art leaders, and I don't mean just painters and drawers, I mean engineers, who, designers, those kind of people who, if they didn't have art as a youth, they wouldn't be the things that they are today. They wouldn't be these big time engineers for, General Motors, Ford, Tesla, these big corporations. So, having involvement as a youth is really important. And I wish I am working on my PhD. Maybe I should study that a little bit more about the effects of youth sports as you go into adulthood. So thank you. I'll have to credit you for asking me that question, Ronnie.
We'll take the credit. It's been great talking to you. We appreciate your time this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you both. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for keeping us all up to date on these events. I think it's well needed, and I appreciate you both.
So if people want to find out more about your company, though, where can they do that?
Sure. Our website is www.gomra.com. You can get in touch. There's a contact page. You can get in touch with us through there, or you can feel free to call me directly or email me directly at Kirkwood, KIRKWOOD @gomra.com as well. Love to hear from you.
We so appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Tyler.